Dear Mr. Dobi, Deputy Minister of Justice, Tirana, a dear colleague from BCSDN, Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, dear friends, it is an honor in my capacity as the Executive Director of Partners Albania for Change and Development to welcome you to Tirana for this year's regional conference on civil society resilient voices, co-organized together with our network, Balkans Civil Society Development Network. The title captures what unites us here today. Resilience in the face of shrinking space, determination despite uncertain funding, and the conviction that Western Balkans belongs in Europe. This gathering has been made possible with the support of our strategic partners, the European Union, through its support for National Resource Center for Civil Society in Albania, and the SIDA-funded Civil Society Hub. Both initiatives work at the regional level and reflect a strong commitment to strengthening civic space in the Western Balkans. And I use this opportunity to warmly thank them for making today's discussion possible. This commitment reflects also the broader European perspective that guides our region's future. Albania, along with Montenegro, is considered a front-runner in the EU integration process. In September, Albania reached an important milestone. 5 out of 6 negotiating clusters were open, and 28 out of 33 acquis chapters are under negotiation at the moment. Only 1 cluster remains to be open with the objective of doing so by the end of this year. Albania's progress was praised at the highest levels in Brussels last month, described as fast and determined, with reforms recognized as tangible signs of positive changes. Yet, the message from Commissioner Kos was also clear. The accession process cannot rely solely on government. It must involve Parliament, civil society, and the private sector. Broad inclusion builds consensus, strengthens acceptance, and makes reforms truly sustainable. Across the Western Balkans, civil society actors have proven indispensable. They engage citizens and build trust in the European path. They bring expertise and hands-on knowledge into negotiations and policy making. They also monitor and scrutinize, holding institutions accountable and ensuring that promises turn into practice. Without this role, integration risks becoming technical on paper, but hollow in reality. Yet the environment for civil society remains uneven. In Albania, the last civil society roadmap, 2019-2023, a government civil society framework that outlines reforms to improve participation, transparency, and sustainability of civil society organizations by setting priorities for legal, financial, and institutional support, was only partially implemented, while the new one has been delayed for 2 years now. Consultation processes often are formal, with little feedback or follow-up, while participation in the EU integration is often symbolic rather than substantive. Public funding mechanisms are limited and inconsistent. The failure to implement the new law on the electronic registry for more than 3 years has left many organizations in limbo, while court procedures for registration or statute changes continue to drag on for months, sometimes even more than a year. Negligible incentives for philanthropy further limit local giving. The funding situation compounds the challenge. The abrupt halt of USAID funding earlier this year disrupted the region. In Albania, this shock was compounded by drastic cuts and withdrawals of most of bilateral donors. EU funding remains the main source of support, but at the current levels it cannot meet the sector needs. At the same time, important opportunities are emerging. The EU is preparing its first civil society strategy, a landmark step that will frame how civic actors are supported, not only in Europe, but also across the enlarged region. Joint consultative committees are bringing civil society in the Western Balkans into closer dialogue with EU institutions, offering structured channels that help local voices influence EU priorities and practices. Civil society in Albania is already mobilizing, contributing to EU consultations, joining regional coalitions and strengthening watchdog roles. But engagement still remains fragmented and ad hoc. This is why our first panel today will examine how to connect these European-level processes with domestic realities in Western Balkans, and how to ensure that civil society in Western Balkans is not only participating, but actively shaping the civic space agenda in Europe. Even with challenges, there are reasons for cautious optimism. The EU new strategy and the funding tools, I'm thinking here about the MFF, will not replace bilateral support, but they reflect a clear commitment to protect the civic space. What matters for us is how effectively we mobilize to use these opportunities and how we build sustainability and trust into the system. This is why today's agenda is timely. Our discussion will explore the framework that shapes civic space, how civil society can contribute more directly to EU integration, and how sustainability can be secured. Because without reliable funding, even the most strongest voices can fall silent. This conference is not only about pointing out obstacles. This is about recognizing the tools and mechanisms available, nationally and in Europe, learning from models in the past enlargement cycles, and deciding how to use them. If we live with a clear sense of direction, stronger alliances, and the courage to insist on fair rules, then this gathering will have a real meaning. We learned by now that civic space is not a given. It exists because we defend it by organizing, by engaging, and by holding ourselves and our partners accountable. And with that spirit, let me give the floor to our speakers as part of the opening session to further frame the discussion of today. And each of them reflects a key partnership in this work, from the regional partners to the support institutions like EU, and then government partners. So now it's my pleasure to give the floor to Biljana Spaskowska. She is the Director of Balkan Civil Society Development Network, a network where Partners Albania is a proud member for more than a decade now. And Biljana will speak in her capacity as Executive Director, among many others. Also as the co-organizer of this conference. And BCSDN, in fact, for more than 15 years, has worked tirelessly to bring the voice of civil society from this part of the world, of the Western Balkans, at the national governments, but especially to Brussels. So I have the pleasure to give the floor to Biljana.
Oh, thank you, Yuli, for such a kind introduction and a lovely welcome. It's always a pleasure to be here. In Tirana, we see this as an opportunity with Albania and Montenegro being the frontrunner in the EU accession process. We see this as an opportunity and also responsibility that we voice our recommendations, our concerns, and our observations for the way forward for stronger civil society as a necessity and integral part of the future of this region and in the EU. We don't, at BCSDN actually, we don't usually do these kind of gatherings. Like conferences, it's usually what we attend and where we find a place to speak out. However, these are particular times and require a more comprehensive and targeted discussion of the times before ahead of us. So when we discussed with Partners Albania how and what we need to do, this conference came as the obvious action point in raising the awareness of what is going on in the civic society and the civic space in the region and joining in the efforts to amplify these voices. So BCSDN is known for its monitoring of the enabling environment in the Western Balkans and Turkey, and we have been doing so for years now. What we see is a dramatic trend of shrinking civic space, unfortunately, a very limited capacity of the civil society to operate, to contribute in what we all strive to be a prosperous future of our societies in the Balkans. What we have been observing in the past period is more than the regular trend of shrinking civic space. The past year has been marked with severe deterioration of the situation in almost in all of the countries, with a special focus on Serbia in our region, unfortunately. But the impact of the donor landscape, the abrupt withdrawal of US aid has caused severe implications that go beyond the financial sustainability of the civil society, unfortunately. After the abrupt suspension of the US aid, we have seen rise of smear campaigns, rise of delegitimizing narratives among the civil society, who unfortunately pertain a long-lasting effect. Observing this, with the help of the BCSDN members, we joined forces to conduct research actually in the impact of both the US aid withdrawal, but also on the donor landscape. The research is in final stage. We have conducted more than around 25 interviews in the region with key donors, and we're currently being in the consolidation phase for receiving feedbacks for those who are part. But the indications and the findings are striking. The research points to clear and significant volatility in the donor landscape, highlighted by recent exit of major international donors, including Switzerland is exiting here in Albania by in the forthcoming period. The UK overall aid is reduced to historic lows, which will of course significantly affect the civil society in the region. Netherlands is cutting 1 billion from its global civil society envelope and significantly reducing, if not shutting down, their programs here in the region as well. The gravity of the US aid suspension was almost, only in Serbia, it was more than $52 million, and it had immense effect on how the civil society functions, especially the organizations who deal with rule of law and human rights, which are the most significant ones under attack. So the current challenge is very clear. The outcome and the forecast for the future is it's not optimistic. And it will be difficult to keep this cautious optimism when the funding prospects look so gloomy, especially since in our region we do have a problem with public funding as well. So this is one of the issues that we have to be able to address in our countries, where domestic public funding should be a source of stability, rather than what our research often shows is used for political manipulation and for undermining the legitimacy, credibility, and independence of civil society. We have to work more on that, and we have to do it jointly. And the challenge which lies ahead of us to do more with less is more important in tremendous trends of democratic backsliding in our region, in Europe, unfortunately in the world. And this trend, it looks like it will persist not for a short period of time, but for a longer period. So the aim of this conference today is that we have a discussion of how to think the way forward, what can be our responses, and what we can learn for this exchange, and how to better prepare for the future. We wanted to come out of this with a joint declaration, hopefully for all the proceedings that will provide some source of guiding points and action points that will be constructive for how to navigate further these times of uncertainty. Coming out of it, hopefully more resilient and stronger and more impactful in our work. So we have just drafted a very basic outline, but all the proceedings here, all the discussions, we want to be part of it. So the declaration will come after the conference concludes, and we welcome your feedback and your inputs to it. So we can actually have a tangible document we can refer to and use it for guidance for our next steps. So yes, this is it from me. Once again, thanks to the host, to Partners Albania, for the incredible work in setting this up and making this possible. And I welcome everyone to don't be shy and do your best to provide your thoughts and inputs. And let's have a great discussion today. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your insightful speech, and also for the partnership and the commitment. Now it is my pleasure to present virtually Ambassador Gonzato. He had to fly outside the country, but it was quite important for him to leave a video message. He is missed in this discussion, and but I have to say this, and I don't say this just out of courtesy. Ambassador Gonzato has been that kind of ambassador that has stood by civil society in these 2 years, I think, of his service here. And he has been quite outspoken anytime there was a risk or infringement of rights, civil society. So I think as part of his video message, he also sent the same message to all of us. So I invite everybody to watch his message.
Dear friends from Albania, from the region, and from Brussels, I'm really sorry I cannot be with you today in person to open this important conference. But I didn't want to miss the opportunity to pass on a few key messages of support and encouragement, hoping that they will inspire you during your discussions. First message is that the accession process is a whole of society project. It cannot and must not be left solely in the hands of governments and parliaments. Civil society must play its part in the process. And why is it so important? Firstly, because citizens must feel that they can contribute to shaping the reforms leading to accession. And they should have ownership of these reforms. And you as civil society can play a key role in communicating effectively about this process. Obviously, a key condition is that you have access to information. And this is why we insist so much in all our reports on effective consultation. The second reason for it is that we believe that governments can benefit immensely from your sectoral expertise and hands-on knowledge during the accession negotiations. And here I really want to encourage you to play a proactive role in all the platforms for consultation and participation available for decision making. And the third reason is that government actions must be subject to scrutiny and monitoring by CSOs. This is essential for ensuring public accountability, and civil society must play an integral role as part of the checks and balances system. For instance, some of the countries of the region have established civil society joint consultation committees with the European Economic and Social Committee. These platforms provide space for organized civil society, including employers' associations, trade unions, and other CSOs, to monitor and engage in the negotiation process. And last but not least, in the context of EU accession, the participation and consultation of civil society in policy making is a fundamental requirement. This aspect is closely monitored under the political criteria and the chapter on the functioning of democratic institutions during the whole negotiations. Every country wishing to join the EU must have a well-functioning civil society and an effective civil dialogue in place. However, we're witnessing a worrying trend. The space for civil society organization is shrinking. Democracies face growing threats from information manipulation, while fundamental values such as diversity, equality, and inclusions, which are at the heart of your work, are increasingly being challenged. The Western Balkans are no exception. CSOs and journalists in the region are frequently targeted by smear campaigns, adverse legislative changes, and sometimes even verbal and physical threats. What is the EU response to all this? In response to these challenges, the EU is stepping up its efforts to support a vibrant, independent civil society and independent media. Both are crucial for a healthy democracy. My colleague Enrica Chiozza, who's coming from Brussels, is with you today and will provide a detailed presentation on our strategic and financial support for civil society. But let me briefly highlight a few key points. In her political guidelines for 2024-2029, the President of the Commission underlined the need for stepping up engagement with and protection of civil society at EU level. The first ever EU civil society strategy that is currently being prepared and for which you have been widely consulted is the result of this commitment. The enlargement context and the external dimension for Eastern Partnership countries will be fully integrated in this strategy. And this commitment is not just words, it's also financial. The European Endowment for Democracy, which is more present than ever in the Western Balkans region, will continue to support on a larger scale CSOs and independent media platforms and journalists working towards a pluralistic, democratic political system. The Civil Society Facility, which provides targeted support to civil society at both regional and national levels, will also remain. This is a very important instrument within the Albanian context, with concrete impacts, and surely it is the same for all the countries in the region. It is thanks to the facility that we were able to initiate support for CSOs in Albania working on consumer protection and food safety, an area where civil society presence was previously very limited. And recent alerts issued by EU food safety authorities have underscored the necessity for increased accountability in this field. More recently, the facility enabled us to launch a call for proposals that includes dedicated focus on diversity, equality, and inclusion, thus reaffirming the EU's engagement in the fight against all forms of discrimination. Now, I know that financial viability is a great concern of yours these days. While the EU cannot fully compensate for the gap left by the withdrawal of the US government funding, let me assure you that the EU will continue to support universal and fundamental values such as human dignity, freedom, democracy, equality, the rule of law, and human rights. Moreover, as the next multi-annual financial framework is discussed in the coming months, we will work to ensure that funding for the EU's external action matches the scale of these challenges. To sum up, the role of civil society in the EU enlargement process is indispensable. Civil society must continue to be a proactive, vocal, and engaged partner in this process, helping to shape the future of the region, ensuring accountability, and safeguarding the values that unite us all. Before concluding, I would like to especially thank Partners Albania for their relentless dedication to supporting civil society in Albania, as well as the Balkan Civil Society Development Network for their important work across the region. I wish you all a successful conference, and I look forward to having another opportunity to work with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Master. I'm sure that the staff of the delegation here will pass to him this thanks on our behalf. And now I have the pleasure to give the floor to Deputy Minister of Justice, Mr. Teddy Dolby. He has been serving as Deputy Minister for almost 2 years now, but also, as importantly, he has been the chief negotiator for fundamentals and Chapter 23, where we relate more closely as civil society. Thank you for your presence, Mr. Dobi. This is a very extremely busy period, and we have had a couple of hiccups during organizing this conference. So we appreciate your time. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Juliana. And first of all, I hope that I will live up to the presentation of the ambassador. It was very thorough and very, let's say, elucidating and really touching a lot on the different areas. I really thank Partners Albania and all the civil society organizations for being part in this discussion today, and also for the very sustained collaboration we've had for a very long time at the Ministry of Justice and in the wider context. Just in the past 2 days, on Monday and Tuesday, we had a very interesting workshop done in collaboration with the Fundamental Rights Agency of the European Union, where we're discussing very important topics such as disaggregation of statistical data for fundamental rights, matters such as on how to best address problems such as hate crime, hate speech, and the role of civil society throughout the discussion with expertise and with the necessary insights that has been periodically. So this is just a microcosm for showing the importance of a state dialogue, the dialogue that we see on a day-to-day basis, because of course my main role is that of Deputy Minister of Justice, but I have a very high honor and pleasure of serving as a negotiator for both Chapter 23, so for the judiciary, anti-corruption and fundamental rights, and for the aspect of the political criteria regarding the function of democratic institutions. When it comes to the function of democratic institutions, of course, there are 3 main pillars, and one of these big important pillars has to do with the consolidation and support of civil society in order for it to thrive and to be sustainable, especially taking account all the challenges that were already elucidated even today, and that I'm sure it's very felt and very, let's say, a lived experience for everybody. So, in this regard, we as Minister of Justice and myself as the responsible negotiator, as member of the National Committee on Support of Civil Society, are strongly supporting both the work also with collaboration with the High Judicial Council in order to find solutions regarding the problem of now sustained for a number of years for the electronic registration of civil society organizations, and for all these other matters of more, let's say, day-to-day measures such as changes in executive director, oversight bodies. The original plan was by passing some of these roles to the, let's say, administration, of course, to the chancellors to make things more flexible, but we're seeing that there is a need to still address issues in practice, both at the legal element, but what our experience has shown us sometimes the law is an important element, but changing the culture of the institution is as important, not even more important. In parallel with this, as part of the discussion also at the National Committee for Society, and a topic that I'm sure that my colleague Tirana, head of SAFAC, will have the chance to also discuss at further panel that I saw that is part of the discussion today, has to do with the VAT exemption and the VAT rebate, which is a very long-standing process. It's a process that I've been following personally for a long time. I myself come from the expertise world, so I was for a long number of years part of the Erasmus and other EU technical assistance projects, and we always have identified this issue as a core issue. Work is ongoing, both Minister of Finance and SASPAC are working on this to find the necessary approach in order to make it possible that this thing is addressed in a way that it's the most, let's say, practical for the institutions. We have to be very open. I believe this is the reason why we're all here. to have open discussion. Unfortunately, a lot of our fiscal and legal system, the way it was designed really equates a lot of civil society organizations with the counterparts in the private sector, even though there are very specific differences. So this is part of the bigger picture of changing legislation, but really changing the way these things are seen and how they can be addressed. So this, when it comes to the big picture, when it comes to the activities, and I believe it's very important. Again, also said a bit when it comes to the very intense process that we're undergoing for the EU integration, where really in the period of 1 year, so we started this process of opening the clusters on 15th of October. In 15 days we get to October, it's exactly 1 year. We pretty much have opened all clusters except for one, for which we're very confident that by the end of the year will open. We have progressed at a very good pace with the inter-benchmarks, where out of a total of 24 inter-benchmarks, 14 represent the topics of chapter 23, so judicial anti-corruption and fundamental rights, and 10 matters of 24, freedoms and security, freedom, justice, and security. And in this very short period, a lot of very important activities are going, and we are planning and preparing in order to have a platform of partnership for European integration, which actually is one of the points of pride for our ministry. So the Minister of Justice, throughout the process, from the screening and in continuation, has a very active partnership platform for European integration. So far we have 71 organizations which are very active, and historically we've had a lot of high number and incredibly high quality participation in the discussions. So the idea is to come back again to discuss some of these big pictures of the way that the inter-benchmarks are functioning. You see some of more of a day-to-day technical reason, but there are a number of issues which really are of let's say societal area, and for that reason the partnership platform is very important. But in parallel, there are two very important processes that I not only want and I need to touch upon. One process has to do with the media dialogue platform that has been hosted by the Faculty of Journalism of the Faculty of the University of Tirana, where a lot of different partners from civil society, from the media sector, from journalist organizations, trade unions, and the others have participated as equal partners. We as Minister of Justice, with our technical structures, have supported it only as, let's say, supporters in order to bring the necessary stakeholders by the side, but really leaving all the partners to provide their feedback information. That is a process that is ongoing, and that we believe very positive outcomes can come out of it. And the last, and in a sense, very important element has to do with the new criminal code discussions. I'm sure all of you have heard about discussions. There are a lot of very important topics. And one thing that I believe it needs to be made very clear is that this process started in the 25th of July, but this is not a process that ends in the 25th of October or November. It's a long-standing process. It can take up to all of next year if it's needed. Our obligation is to have things done by December 2026. So we have the necessary time, and the reason why it started this summer is really to give the time necessary to have the national discussions. And in total, from the 25th, there is a schedule of 25 public consultation events happening with all the different stakeholders, and they're divided also in thematic basis, because of course it's such a huge, very important document, and we would highly and very strongly desire all the participation of all the partners and the parties throughout all these meetings in order to really get the best insights, so we can then forward it to the high-level experts that are working, and it can form a basis for further reflection and work in order to have a truly modern and up to the task criminal code. That is the end all and be all of the process. It's very important for anybody that's interested. At the website of the Ministry of Justice, you can find the necessary information in order to be abreast of it, and it's always updated in accordance to all the changes that they come. So that is, in a sense, what I wanted to touch upon. And of course, we're living in challenging times. As they say, there are the three Chinese curses, and one of them is, may you live in interesting times. We're truly living in interesting times, both in terms of geopolitical stability, the changes as was elucidated with funding from the US, from a big number of other partners. So really being nimble and being able to discuss and find avenues ahead is the best way forward. So I really would congratulate Partners Albania on the organizations, and confident that there will be very important discussions ahead. Thank you.
In fact, I didn't say this as part of your introduction, but something to put the spotlight when it comes to EU integration is the Ministry of Justice. There are lots of things with consultation regarding EU integration, as I mentioned, but in fact, the roundtable on Chapter 23 has been the most open, I think, with more participation from civil society. And as I reiterated in my opening speech, the role of civil society is important because it really brings quality in the policy making. And the two issues that you pointed out, electronic registry and VAT, I think are the issues that have proven that without a proper consultative process, the laws are problematic, and it is more work, in fact, for the government and the institutions to go back. As you know, the NGO registration law took 1.5 years of discussions with the Parliament and civil society on our side, including the VAT. But I take also your presence in this conference and your panel and in our panel as a commitment of the Ministry of Justice and the government to continue this discussion. We have, if there is one important moment, I think, in the negotiation process, the very first, after opening the chapters, clusters, is the interim benchmarks. So, and fundamentals are part of the first list of interim benchmarks that will be assessed. So this is also another opportunity where we give another impetus to our partnership with civil society and government, because we know that fundamentals are key into this process. So with that said, I want to thank you, Deputy Minister Biljana, and I'll give the floor to Ariola Golli, Director of Programs and Manager of the National Resource Center for Civil Society in Albania, to facilitate the transition of the panels for today. So, and all the logistics when the moment comes. So, conference embark. Let's have a good discussion. Thank you.